Hello, people. Welcome to the AuthorHood podcast. I hope your day today is going great. Season's another gem, Mr. Fish Nealman, is with us today. He is the author of the book series Esteban. Hello, sir. Thank you so much for considering our invite.
Uh, Thank you. It's wonderful to be able to have this opportunity to speak with you, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
That's our pleasure, sir. Thank you so much. So, how would you best introduce yourself to the listeners?
As an author of stories, I try to create narratives that are relatable, are compelling, and that people can journey through the human experience, get lost in a narrative. So underlying primarily storyteller. A minor secondary to that is I like to play my guitar. So I want to be musician, but that will never happen because my talent for music is very lacking. So I
Okay.
stick with writing.
Yeah, so something like, writing took over. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I have to read that Esteban, it's a series. So how did it happen? Like what made you choose the particular title?
The particular title comes from the primary protagonist, so the main character for the story.
Okay.
The series itself is a multi-generational story.
Hmm.
So it means that the story actually begins with the birth of his father.
Okay.
And his father's name is Stephen,
Hmm.
and Esteban is the Spanish equivalent to Stephen. Name of the book is rooted in
Hmm.
Stephen. It picks up on the Spanish version because that's the name given to the primary protagonist.
Okay. So it's like a father-son narrative or what?
It starts with the father
Hmm.
and goes through some experiences that the father has. His father was born in the United States, in the state of Texas.
Hmm.
There's a town, a real town, that
Hmm.
lies on the border between Texas and Mexico, and that town is called Laredo. And Stephen is born in Laredo, and it
Hmm.
goes through his primary life to when he starts venturing out and traveling, and he ultimately obtains work employment in Mexico City, in Mexico.
Okay.
And there he meets his future wife, and from their relationship and their marriage, Esteban is born. And then so Esteban's life also starts from when he is born and then carries on through his life, which is the major part of the series.
Okay. Sounds a little challenging. Like how it was for you to frame Esteban, how challenging it was. What all had you have to be through when you were framing Esteban?
A lot of the story narrative
Hmm.
um, happened organically. And what I mean by that is that I had some notions of the character of Esteban.
Okay.
When I began writing the story,
Huh.
I didn't know how I was going to end the story. I didn't know the major parts, but
Hmm.
I just began writing. And as I was writing, the ideas and the story and the characters I was putting into the book started to reveal their messages and where they would like to go, and I just followed them.
Hmm. Okay. So like how well Esteban resides in you?
I don't think we're alike at all. That there are a number of distinct things that make us different. But what I would say in that a number of the experiences that Esteban has, especially when it comes to traveling,
Hmm.
are things that I've experienced. And when I had trips that didn't necessarily go too well, and things like of that nature,
Hmm.
Esteban has incurred the same type of trauma. But from the personality and character aspects, between myself and Esteban, there are a number of distinct differences that we are not one or the same.
Okay. Just you mentioned about the travel part. With the travel comes in a lot of culture, meeting up with a lot of culture. So Is there multiculturalism in the story?
Yes, as mentioned, the story does start in the US,
Hmm.
but then it goes into Puerto Rico,
Hmm.
uh, and then into Mexico.
Hmm.
From there, the story goes into Spain, then
Hmm.
Germany, and then Italy. After that, that concludes book one. In book two,
Hmm.
it picks up in Mexico, in a fictitious town. And then after it turns out that Esteban is actually thrown out of the country of Mexico,
Okay.
and to find safe passage and a safe place,
Hmm.
he finds his way to Kochi in India. And a lot of book two is set in Kochi, and there's a reason for that.
Hmm. It being?
I have one of the colleagues that I've worked with over the years,
Okay.
an Indian gentleman, and becoming more acquainted with him.
Hmm.
Um, he was from Kochi, and I learned from him that although he's Indian, he wasn't Muslim or Hindu, but in fact
Hmm.
he was a Christian. And the fact that within India that there are Indians with firm Christian backgrounds was
Hmm.
something that was new to me when I was talking with him. And so when I began to write Esteban's story,
Hmm.
I leveraged that and put a significant part of Esteban's narrative in
Hmm.
Kochi, picking up on real places that exist in Kerala state, and just kind of weaving in that cultural aspect, and especially in that part of India that deals with a lot of immigrants coming in from foreign countries like the Philippines or Nigeria or something, and that a lot of the talent people there
Hmm.
even go out to the United Arab Emirates or Qatar to find other employment,
Hmm.
and a number of other incidents that were going on. I've weaved heavily into the book. The one of the semi interesting aspects potentially with like the second book in the series, that when it takes place in Mexico, in Kochi, and it
Hmm.
also then takes place in a part of China, is that from a multicultural aspect,
Hmm.
actually aren't any kind of Caucasian characters within that second book of the series at all. So it is very multicultural in that regard.
Okay, I am from India, and believe me, in a single home, you're going to find a lot of cultures. People like from n number of cultures, they bring up a family and everything. So reading something that has so much culture in it is really a good interest, especially here. Huh?
Yes, and from my own experiences, I
Hmm.
have not personally been to Kochi. That what I learned, the basis of what I learned was from my colleague. But
Hmm.
in my career and so forth, my travels have taken me to places like
Hmm.
Bangalore and Hyderabad, Pune, and
Hmm.
Mumbai. So I have seen a little bit of India, but not Kochi. And having written about it, it's certainly on my list of places to go and visit one day.
Great. The places that you've already traveled, I mean, in India, they are enough to show you how diverse it is here. Those places are really
Yes,
enough, yes, because so much of culture happens to be in the places like in the south of India. There is so much to explore when it comes to culture. It's really, really diverse there.
yes. Every time I've had an opportunity to visit, I've always thoroughly enjoyed my time, and talking and meeting lots of people, and understanding their backgrounds, and how how they live and what they like and stuff. And so I've always really enjoyed my time that I've had in India.
That'd be great. That's some nice statement for us Indians. Thank you. So, your books, they have different subtitles. One is the Love's Ordeal, the second is Love's Irony. How does the subtitle thing happen?
Yes. So, and the third book in the series will be subtitled Love's Triumph.
Okay.
So, Love's Ordeal, Love's Irony, and Love's Triumph.
Hmm.
Um, what that is, so that's obviously putting themes of love interweaving that through the series itself. And love serves as a backdrop. It's
Okay.
something that Esteban himself struggles to find.
Okay.
When he can find it, he's very happy and very content. It's an aspect of dealing with some underlying aspects of the human experience, the human condition, is what it means to be lonely, what it means to be loved, what it means to be in love. That it's not the primary narrative of the story, but it is a strong thread that helps ties and pulls the story into a cohesive narrative for the reader.
Yeah, it's like the root thread which lets you weave the rest of the story.
Precisely.
Okay. So how related are the second and the third part of the series?
The entire series is essentially then a sequence. So book one as I mentioned earlier, starts with Esteban's father. But then when Esteban is born, book one takes Esteban from when he's born to when he graduates. So he's in his early 20s. In book two, it's about another 20-25 years of his life. And then in book three, it's about 15 years plus remainder of part of his life. He doesn't die in the end, but essentially the journey over the three books is a journey through Esteban's life.
Okay. Through one of your posts on Instagram, I happened to read that as a result, Esteban grew up loved by his mother and hated by his father. That was really something that hit me. What is that about? Loved by his mother and hated by his father.
Yes, that's part of the dynamic that hugely impacts Esteban from a mental standpoint. But where that comes from is that when his father, Stephen, and his mother, her name was Isabella, that they met in Mexico City. Stephen was quite besotted, overcome at Isabella and her daughter, but it was mostly from a lust standpoint.
Okay.
And Isabella ended up becoming pregnant, and Stephen and Isabella were forced into a marriage primarily by Isabella's brothers.
Okay.
And so Stephen and Isabella married, and Stephen was not directly interested in the relationship and always had arguments and fought with his wife Isabella. And then because she was pregnant when they got married, after the baby was born, the father Stephen told his wife, "I want to name our child Stephen after me."
Okay.
Because Isabella and Stephen were fighting, what she did was trying to be a little bit revengeful and chose to name the baby in the Spanish equivalent to Stephen, which is Esteban. And because the baby was named Esteban, Stephen became infuriated, and he couldn't even say the name Esteban, and he loathed his son because he didn't have the English equivalent of Stephen. And so it meant from the very beginning that Stephen wanted nothing to do with his son, and so Isabella adored her child, and so he was doted on and smothered and loved by his mother and his father, because they were in a very dysfunctional house and a dysfunctional family, wanted nothing to do with his son. And so Esteban had all the love, more than enough love from his mother, but he yearned for that type of love from his father, which he never received. And so the dichotomy of being in this dysfunctional house really manifested and ultimately affected him.
Okay, that's where, for the remainder of his life, Stephen refused to forgive Isabella comes from. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great. That's something, a beautiful weave, I would say. Beautiful. So what genre would you like to keep your writing in?
It's a little bit generic in that regard. So the genre is literary fiction.
Okay.
There are some underpinnings
Hmm.
in terms of romance because of the love, but that's not a core thing. A lot
Hmm.
of what I write about delves into the richness of the characters, and it expresses and exposes the human condition.
Okay, okay. And when it comes to reading, what genre interests you the most?
It's quite diverse. Being, an author that is not as well known as major writers and stuff. One of the things I find that I gravitate
Hmm.
towards smaller independent writers, in terms of the community of that, and also to kind of see what stories and narratives they weave and what they think. So I will read some popular books, both fiction and non-fiction.
Okay.
But I'm definitely certainly drawn to independent authors.
Okay, great. That's a big help to the authors. Great. Since there is so much of literature, so much of culture already, how far do you think culture and literature they are related, and how can this relationship be more quality filled when it comes to writing?
I think in terms of the culture aspects, it's
Hmm.
responsibility of the literature part,
Hmm.
be reflective of it, to be a mirror of it, so that
Hmm.
it can remain and be sustained. There are certainly aspects within cultures, and certainly, within the current United States of America, where certain opinions and certain tolerances are changing, so that you can get a sense that culture itself can shift over
Hmm.
time. And I think
Yes.
literature serves as a great aid to
Hmm.
encapsulate the culture for a point of time.
Exactly, because culture remains through writing. What all is left behind, any culture that is not very known to the new generation, it can only know about it through the writing. So, anyway, they have to work hand in hand. Do I say it right?
Yes, and I think certainly if a culture has a body of work that has survived,
Hmm.
because unfortunately within the human experience across the planet, different countries will go to war with each other and do battle, and there will be victors and losers.
Hmm.
That quite often it it's said that it's the winner's narrative that
Hmm.
remains. And I think if a culture has had a strong body of literature and that can survive,
Hmm.
that overall it means that the winner's voice doesn't have to be the exclusive voice, but yet you know aspects of any culture will be
Hmm.
able to survive for eternity.
Something that bothers me is that literature anyway is losing its quality. It has lost a lot of its quality over time. What is your take on that?
I think that can be true, but
Hmm.
I do think the number of voices that are out there and can be accessed, whether it's in book or various platforms online, that I do
Hmm.
think there are a number of voices and a number of outlets that one can go to explore provocative thought and interesting ideas, and aspects that are capable of then sustaining and through that literature. So I'm not sure it's something that there could be a perceived trend towards, but one where taking a
Hmm.
single brushstroke and applying it to everything, I think we might want to be careful of that, because there are certainly some very solid and provocative voices out there that exist.
Yes, actually, they do. But again, see, why I say so, because after this lockdown thing that happened due to COVID and everything, people they started reading more, and because of the reading that happened, they started writing as well. A lot of writing happened in the lockdown. Once it was over, the literature community it had n number of new writers, authors, novelists, and everyone. But again, there was this degrade in the quality. So there needs to be a maintenance, I'd say.
I'm not directly sure of that. That I think, as everybody being a human being has value and worth. I think if someone goes through the energy of putting something, there shouldn't be immediate grading or rating to say whether their work can be curated to excluded. I think one of the things as a multicultural author that giving opportunity to everybody, it doesn't mean that everybody will become a bestseller or
Exactly that.
widely read or anything like that. But I would very much want to advocate for that if somebody has a voice, that there is a platform that voice can be heard on, because everybody ultimately has value and has worth and deserves the right to have their voice out there if they want their voice out there. Ultimately popularism will help filter things itself, and there's a lot of things in life, in culture, in living that goes in waves. That there are peaks, there are troughs, where we might be within that. It's going to change all the time.
True
But
that.
I would want to make sure that curation does not block the opportunity for a voice to be heard, because I have to even put myself in that regard, that I wouldn't want people to overtly block my voice just because I may not be as popular as some other authors.
See, everyone has something to tell, everyone has something to speak about, speak of. But again, there is this one word that you just use, popularism, that has taken over almost every mind. Whosoever starts writing, whosoever starts its journey with pen and paper, people look forward to being popular, being the bestseller. There is this one thing in mind that gropes them, that yes, if I have started writing something, I need to be on the top, whether it be in terms of getting read or being known. So this thing actually keeps quality.
Right. And from a personal aspect on that, the popularism is going to be rooted in one personal ego. And I have been asked before about my goals as a writer, and I've been reluctant to that I have any specific goals, because having a goal ultimately means I'm going to be rooted in some type of egotism.
Yes.
And I try to avoid that. I try to write something that's compelling. I try to write something that's good. I try to write something that if somebody is going to invest their time in my story, that they can come away with feeling that their time has been well spent. But I try to separate out any aspect of that from being overloaded with an egotistic statement, such as I want to be number one, I want to be popular, I want to have over a gazillion copies sold or read or whatever that might be. That I try to keep that side of things separate from my work.
Yes. And that's how there is satisfaction in oneself. Keeping away from this being a bestseller and everything, just keeping to the work, giving best to what you write, it actually satisfies. I hope I say that right, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the phrasing of it, French, is que sera, sera. So, whatever will be, will be.
Will be, exactly, yes. So, one more, from the book itself. He'll make a fine priest. Where is this coming from? I happened to, read it again in one of the posts of your Instagram, and out of nowhere, I'm reminded of it. So I would like to know what it is about when it comes to the Esteban series, like he'll make a fine priest.
Right. That is essentially a statement of foreshadowing, so that Esteban ultimately becomes a priest.
Okay.
And this is where the coachy part comes in, because he's bishop in Kochi and within the Catholic community there.
Hmm.
But the aspect of Esteban being a priest
Hmm.
was my initial thoughts that I had in terms of the character development, that Esteban has certain struggles,
Hmm.
and the fact he is a priest allows him
Hmm.
to have his struggles masked. And what I mean by that is that because they're masked, it means people around Esteban don't see the struggles that he has.
Hmm.
And even Esteban himself is not aware of these struggles. In fact, one of the aspects that's somewhat unique about the book
Hmm.
is that the only person that ever, through the entire three books,
Okay.
is exposed directly with the knowledge, the troubles that Esteban is going through, is the reader themselves. So what the journey into the priesthood
Hmm.
was a plausible Esteban to hide to himself and hide to others
Okay.
some of his troubling aspects.
Okay. Yeah, kind of an escape from one own self. Yes?
Well, it goes back to the statement that you made earlier about that he was doted on and loved by his
Hmm.
mother, but basically hated by his father.
Hmm.
So Esteban develops some mental illness conditions,
Okay.
and that's kind of rooted in that. And being in the priesthood,
Hmm.
work he does, and so on, it allows this condition that he has to be, as I mentioned, masked and not directly observed.
Okay. So, what all are the readers expected to take away from the third book, Love's Triumph?
Overall, there are multiple messages around things, but one of the major messages about everything is that because Esteban has a particular mental illness that he struggles with,
Hmm.
and many people have aspects. It doesn't have to be mental, but a lot of people have struggles in just daily life and everything. When Esteban was in school and learning to be a priest, he was never number one in his class. He was
Hmm.
a very average student at best, and
Hmm.
quite often lucky to be able to graduate from one year to the next, and so on. So he had his struggles, and he had success, and things never came easy
Okay.
throughout everything. And in the culminations of book three,
Hmm.
is that Esteban has a lasting legacy effect on the entire world.
Okay.
And in part, then, the book is about we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be number
Hmm.
one in our school. We don't have to be number one in our job. We don't have to be brilliant and all of these phenomenal things to
Hmm.
have a life that is worth living. And Esteban's journey is about a life well lived without having to be, the best person on the planet, that you can just be ordinary within your world, and you can have a lasting impact within your family, within your community,
Hmm.
within your culture and everything. And so then, life becomes very worthwhile.
Great. It's something on a world level. Like, there's a message for the whole of the world that yes, one can be ordinary yet be the best.
I wouldn't say ordinary and be the best. I would
Hmm.
say it as ordinary
Huh.
and being
Content with it. Yes?
and being worthwhile.
Okay.
We all have different capacities and different abilities in doing everything,
Hmm.
but whatever we do, it can be worthwhile at whatever level we're doing. And this is what it's getting to. It's not about the best. It's about being valued in what you can do.
Okay. If you had to describe series in maybe 5 words, what would they be?
Wow, 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 and wow.
That was great.
There's a lot of aspects within the story that potentially will cause the reader to say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened," or cause the
Okay.
reader to laugh out loud.
Hmm.
to potentially cry,
Huh.
put people through a roller coaster of emotions, and that I think is best summarized as wow.
Nice and witty response. Anyway, that's good. So, I believe that you must be reading the reviews that people must be putting up for Esteban. Yes?
Some of them.
Okay. Out of some of them, what was that one craziest response that you received?
One that I read that meant a lot to me, that the person wrote that the books were an experience. And
Okay.
getting to that aspect and that resonated with me in such a way that did provide a lot of satisfaction.
They surely do. Anyway, they do, because once the reader gets to connect with what is written, it finds home. It finds home in the reader itself. So anyway, it would have been really fulfilling for you to have read that.
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, if Esteban has to be a superhero kind of a person, who would he be?
I know he's his own person. I think I'll just leave it as that.
Okay. He is having a lasting impact on the people who are reading him. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That was really nice having a conversation with you, sir. So much of Esteban, so much of literature, so much of culture. Thank you so very much for being on the show and having this beautiful, beautiful conversation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you talking with me, and I've enjoyed speaking with you. And this has been a wonderful experience too. So thank you very much.
I really look forward to having you again when the third book is out. And I would really like the readers and the listeners to have their hands on Esteban and know what all he is made up of. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.